What does it take to be the lead singer of Skid Row? We have an exclusive interview with Cyanide frontman Rob Hüssey. All that and more after this.
Excuse me? All right, party on. Here's some more clap for the fans.
Welcome back to Three Guys and a Record podcast. I'm your host, Coach K. Along with me is Brad and Doug. Oh, hey, Brad and Doug. Last year, Skid Row, with the help of national instrument retailer Sweetwater, started a worldwide search for a new singer following the departure of Eric Ronwell for health reasons. Joining us today from Sin City is singer Rob Hüssey, one of the hopefuls going through the audition process. Rob, thanks for your time and for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks. Fresh out of band practice. We appreciate your time. So to get to know you a little bit better, just wanted to take you back a little bit. Tell us how old you were when you got kind of the music bug, and what were some of your beginnings?
My earliest memories are I'm probably 3 years old. My dad had this amazing stereo in the basement, and, I wanted to know how to work this stereo, but, I was 3. So my first memory is of getting in a little bit of trouble for messing with the stereo because, the dials need to stay where they're at.
These go to 11.
Especially those stereos back then. My dad was like Beatles, Led Zeppelin. God, he had just this amazing vinyl collection. And so the first record, when I was about 4, I finally convinced my dad to show me how to use the turntable so I could put a record on. And so he was very meticulous the way he cleaned his records. And so he instilled that in me early on, how to take care of your stuff. And so the first record of his that I started putting on my own was Abbey Road by the Beatles. That was the first record that spoke to me. And so that was that. Led Zeppelin was always on. And then when I was about 6, for some strange reason, I was allowed to hang out with these kids in the neighborhood that were like 14, right? And so I'm over at this kid's house and he's got a Kiss poster on his wall as a Love Gun poster. I've never seen anything like this. And, are those girls? He's like, no, man, that's Kiss. And he takes Love Gun out and puts it on and drops the needle, and I Stole Your Love starts. And I was transformed immediately. It was instantaneous. From that moment on, all throughout my childhood, all I would talk about was Kiss. If you were in my proximity, we were going to talk about the rock group Kiss. In much the same way a Jehovah's Witness might show up at your house and want to speak about, I would show up at your house. Do you have a moment to talk about the rock group Kiss? And so it was just funny like that. And it pretty much just stayed that way. I got a drum set when I was 7. I started out on the drums. I wanted to be Peter Criss. My aunt got me this cool little drum set. I had never played drums before, but my uncle, my dad's brother, had a band, and I got to go to one of their band rehearsals when I was maybe 5. And I remember just only watching the drummer. For some reason, I only cared what the drummer was doing. And I was just watching him do it. And when I had my drum set, I just literally sat down behind it and started playing Love Gun like I knew how to play drums or something. My mom was like, what on earth? How do you know how to? I don't know. And so that was really the beginning of it all. And then from that moment on, just Kiss, 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 everything Kiss. Drumming. I used to put like white baby powder on my face, so I had I had makeup on. I wrote Kiss on the front of the bass drum, Peter Criss, #1 rock drummer. And, it stayed that way until 1983 when Shout at the Devil and Peace of Mind And the first Queensryche album came out that year, I want to say. Screaming for Vengeance had come out the year before. You know, all of a sudden there was just all this heavy metal in my life. But going back to the day that I discovered Kiss, you know, I instantly, as soon as my dad came home from work that day, I'm like, Dad, you got to give me an allowance because I have to buy all these Kiss albums and Kiss posters, you know? And so that's, you know, he gave me some chores and started giving me a little allowance. And I just bought everything I could find that had to do with Kiss, right up until 83 when I had to start spending my money on other bands.
Yeah.
And that's just really how it started and how it all came from. And I played drums until I was like 40. I didn't start singing in a band until then. And especially in the 80s, you know, I'm not a tall, thin man, you know. And in the 80s, you know, those singers really just needed to be tall and thin. And I was not that. So I was happy to just hide behind my drum set and sing really good backing vocals. I went back to school late in life. I went to college when I was 35. Once I graduated, I said to myself, if I'm ever going to do this singing thing, I have to do it now before it's too late. And then a couple days later, I see this ad in a local magazine, Vegas Rocks, that Sally Steele was running at the time. She still runs Vegas Rocks, but it's no longer a print magazine, it's online. And there was the ad, you know, Aces High, Iron Maiden tribute band, searching for Bruce Dickinson, you know, and I'm already driving around in my car singing Iron Maiden songs anyway. I'm like, I got to call these guys, you know, and so I did set up an audition, and I really had no thoughts that I was actually going to get chosen. I just wanted to go in a room with musicians that knew how to play Iron Maiden music and sing these songs, you know, and I thought it'd just be fun and that'd be the end of it. But then they picked me. And so now, you know, I remember at the rehearsal being totally, my voice just being pretty shredded after about 7 songs. And I remember thinking, when they asked me if I wanted the gig, I remember thinking, shit, how do you get to the point where you could do that for 2 hours, you know? And that's really just how everything started. I had only been playing original music up until then and only playing drums. And so, you know, this was my first dip into the singing pool was an Iron Maiden tribute.
That was easy.
If I'm going to climb a mountain, I want it to be the tallest mountain known to man, and that mountain is Mount Dickinson, you know? That guy, you know, what can you say that hasn't already been said, you know?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's awesome. You had your backup plan. It's like, okay, now it's time to go for it and just, you know,
Yeah.
leave it. So no regrets.
No regrets.
So that's awesome. Well, my next question was going to be, at what point was there a pivotal moment where you said, or came to you, was it a song or a concert that, you know, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
It was the moment I bought Kiss Alive 2, put it on and open it up, and oh my God, what is that stage? And so it you know, I just looked at it and I'm like, that's what I want to do. I don't have any idea how one does that, but I want to do that. Whatever they were doing inside the gatefold of Kiss Alive 2. And I think every kid in my neighborhood there, I didn't know any kids at that point in life that weren't Kiss fanatics. You know, we all had the Kiss action figures. We all had the records. We all loved Kiss. It was a very glorious existence right up until the moment I Was Made for Loving You came out. Because my dad had exposed me to various kinds of music, when I heard I Was Made for Loving You and saw the colorful costumes, I wasn't offended, you know, I was just happy there was a new Kiss album. But every other kid on my block suddenly was like, Kiss sucks, man. And so now I start fighting with the kids because I've grown to love Kiss so much at this point that if you're going to insult them, you might as well be insulting my mother, you know, like, so you started fighting with all the kids in the neighborhood, especially when The Elder came out. When The Elder came out, it got pretty brutal as far as kids, you know, then kids were coming after me like, that's the guy that likes Kiss. Let's get him. So yeah, it was that moment though, Kiss Alive 2.
I actually just want to comment one part of your story that really struck me, Rob, when you're talking about asking your dad for allowance to go buy that stuff. It sounded like he was pretty supportive of your dream, and you don't hear that a whole lot when it comes to music. I thought that that was a great part of that story.
He was very supportive. He did make sure to let me know that my chances of ever making any money doing this were slim to none. And so I better stay in school and do all that. But you can also play music too, And so and I did. I stayed in school, and even though when I graduated high school, he was ready to send me to college then, and I'm like, nah, I don't need to go to college. I'm totally gonna be a rock star. And he's like, well, that's great, but what if it doesn't happen? You need to figure out how to make some money. And I was like, you don't understand, man. This is already a done deal. All right. It's literally just a matter of time until it happens. And then, later in life, when I did go back to college, I had to pay for that. And so if I have any regrets, it's maybe that I didn't take him up on his offer to go to college when I was 18, save myself some money. And the only, we were talking about regret a minute ago. I do sometimes regret that I didn't pursue singing in the 80s when this whole thing was actually really happening. And man, I could sing even a lot better back then.
Well,
So
during the 80s, we all thought that it was going to last forever.
I did, I just still can't believe that it's not.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it's
you,
guys like you that are bringing it back, though.
I try, it's my mission in life to, at least here in this town in Las Vegas, to keep this kind of heavy metal alive. And that's why I am willing to put the time to have so many different bands. It gives Cyanide a really good opportunity to open for 3 different bands. Somehow I've been lucky enough that the venues that book me are willing to let me book Cyanide as my own opening act for, Red Hot or Play Dirty or Flight 666. And what a blessing that is. I mean, gosh, it keeps Cyanide's more active than the tribute bands, because those shows rotate, but Cyanide's almost always the opening act. And so,
so if you're singing lead vocals for Cyanide as the opener to your tribute band, and then you're singing lead vocals for your tribute band that
yeah,
night, are you doing a show the next night, or
no,
are you not
no.
talking to anybody? Because your voice has got to be pretty well gone by the
It
end of that.
recovers pretty good these days. Now that I've been doing this a while, during the winter, when you pick up a bug and, the first thing that suffers is your voice. I had a couple of shows where it was very challenging to get through the night, but I'm a singer that is completely willing to forgo any alcoholic beverages before a show or anything at all that might cause me to sing even a little less than I want to. It's really important to me because I watch videos afterwards and pick myself apart and whatever. And so if I don't do everything that was possible to make that video as good as it could be, I'd sit there beating myself up the next day. So that helps. That definitely helps get through shows like that. Cyanide will be like 60 minutes. Red Hot or Iron Maiden will be like 90 minutes. The Iron Maiden night is obviously, it's always the hardest. I might throw some easier songs into the Cyanide set that night.
Mm-hmm.
But one good thing about the Iron Maiden thing that I don't really ever hear anyone talk about this, but I've come to appreciate over the years of singing Iron Maiden, those 3-minute or 4-minute guitar solos or instrumental breaks. I mean, I don't know that I could pull those songs off if that wasn't the case. If those were 3 or 4-minute songs, it might not be something I could do. I don't know, but I do know that I appreciate those breaks.
Oh yeah. I suppose a night where you kind of feel it's struggling a little bit. All right, we're throwing in Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner tonight. I'm gonna need a break. I need that.
Phantom of the Opera, To Tame
Yeah.
a Land, all of the 8-minute epics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those were probably written just for that purpose.
I wonder sometimes, but it really does help. Some nights the Motley Crue actually might be a little more challenging because Vince's vocals are no joke. I mean, they're all up there, and I am really lucky that I've got some fantastic band members in all these bands, but especially in the Motley Crue tribute band and the Iron Maiden tribute band. The backing vocals that they pull off, just they're kind of what makes the show possible at the level that we're able to give it.
Yeah, with the tribute bands gaining popularity, the nostalgia, us those 50 somethings like us that are help keeping the 80s music scene alive.
Yeah.
How are those shows going? Are you seeing a bigger and bigger following when you're performing?
It's definitely growing. Starting last June, I started playing music again. I think my first show back was August of 23. It was a Flight 666 gig. It was just Flight 666 for a while. I was behind the scenes trying to put together the Motley Crew. When Cyanide was together before, people used to always say, why in the do you not have a Motley Crue tribute band, And back then at Counts Vamped, Counts Vamped and Vince Neil, that bar used to be called Feel Goods, and Vince was part owner. And I'm not really quite sure what went down, but for whatever reason, they had a falling out, and then Vince wasn't involved in the bar anymore. I know they've mended fences since and they're all friends again, but at the time, it was like, no, we really just don't want to book a Motley Crue tribute band here, not at this time. And so I held off putting it together because of that. And then after COVID in 23, when I finally came out of my slumber, I was like, all right, well, not only am I going to do a new Cyanide record, but Motley Crue, Iron Maiden, and then the Poison thing came later. And that's kind of how I ended up with 3 tribute bands. But yeah, it was something people were always telling me, why aren't you doing this? You're an idiot. You should totally be doing this. We would play a lot of Motley Crue songs in our set, back then. It's really cool to be doing, and it really does go over well, the Motley Crue tribute. We play almost the entire Shout at the Devil and Too Fast for Love albums. That's like the main part of our existence. And then obviously the hits, and then just a few deep cuts off Feel Good, Girls, and Theater of Pain. We haven't gone past Primal Scream yet.
I haven't gone past Primal Scream yet.
See, as a Motley fan, I have. I mean, I'm a big fan of mostly everything they've done. I would love to be able to go out there and play some cool songs off Saints of Los Angeles, but we live in a time now where the casual fans outnumber the diehard fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you start doing that, you start seeing people go outside, and it's not good for your band. So I was working on the Cyanide album alone, and because I really didn't even intend that I was going to put together a new lineup of Cyanide. I was just going to put the record out and let it do whatever it does, And then somewhere along the way, I changed my mind and, gosh, this record's turning out so good. I have to go play these songs live. But in the meantime, it was just Flight 666. Once everything finally got going, it was really something. What had happened was I had asked Corey Coker, who is Danny the Count Coker's wife. She is the entertainment director at Counts Vamp. And I asked her if she would, let me do a Cyanide album release party there. And so she gave me a date in June. And then I was like, I got this Motley Crue band finally. And I know you said you're open to a Motley Crue tribute now because things are good between them and Vince and everything. And so she ends up booking Cyanide album release on Thursday night, Play Dirty, Poison tribute on Friday night, and Red Hot on Saturday night. So I did a 3-night stand at Vamp. Up until that point, I had a decent following around here, but I wasn't packing rooms, And then the Thursday night Cyanide show was a really good turnout, especially for a Thursday night. It was, I think there was 150 people there. Friday night for Poison, there was 250 people. And then I don't know if everyone was talking to each other or what happened, but on Saturday night, it was 350 people, and they had to shut the door and stop letting people in. And so that was like the first night that I had, like a really successful show like that. And it's kind of just snowballed since then. Even though Counts Vamped closed, they closed later that month in June. And when I booked these shows, I had been playing at Vamped for like 15 years. When I booked those 3 shows, I did not know Vamped was closing, we didn't find out until early in June. So we really made the most of those 3 nights because we knew that it was the last 3 times we were going to play at Vamped. And, Counts Vamped is just a beloved spot in the history of this music scene that will just never be forgotten, and we're all we're all still kind of in mourning that it's, that it's not here. I'm in the process of trying to put together what I consider to be a small version of an arena rock show for all four of these bands. It's a different stage for each band. And as this keeps growing, the cool thing is there's different people there every time. It's not the same crowd, although there is a lot of, there's certainly a lot of regulars and a lot of, close friends and supporters that are always there. But I've noticed lately there's more new people at every show. And then we've been playing a lot at this Tuscany Suites hotel and casino here in Vegas. And these are all ages shows. So people are now bringing their little kids to our shows. The last Play Dirty show, there was like a 5-year-old boy down front of the stage singing along to every Poison song. I finally gave him my hat and gave him the microphone and let him sing. And it's like, if I was 5 and I was watching a band and someone did that for me, I would never forget that. And so I was just so excited that there was any kids there that was digging what we're doing. And so that's been happening a lot more as well.
Some great parenting there.
That's what I told them, because the parents came up to me after the show to thank me because it was their kid that found out that the show was happening. And he's like, you got to take me to this concert. And so it was his first concert. And of course, they're always wanting to get out of the house. And so it was like a perfect opportunity for them to have a night out. It made me really appreciate being able to do this, that, even changing one kid's life is worth it, So yeah.
You're going to be in some kid's story 30 years down the road, and he's going to talk about being 5 years old and getting that itch.
How fun would that be?
Because this guy,
he actually grows up and becomes the rock star and says, yeah, man, I saw this dude singing Poison.
Nice.
But yeah, it's been really cool, really building it this time. I don't, before COVID, when I was doing this, I don't know that I was really looking at any kind of end game like that, or like, I want to take this and build this giant arena rock show and put it on a big stage in a big showroom, but that is in fact the goal now. And so now that I have that goal, everything feels a lot more crystal clear now.
If I wanted to get into the Cyanide stuff a little bit in terms of the production and how that came about, I know we're looking at what you said is your studio is the production process, and how do you write your songs in the studio? Do they come to you, in the middle of the night and you got to get up and write them down? And then when you go through the actual production and the recording, do you have the live band in there with you, or are you playing the instruments? How does all that work?
It is just me. The first Cyanide record was Mark, the original Cyanide guitar player, Mark Mersal, and I. We wrote that record together. I was playing drums and singing. He was playing bass and guitar. He brought in half the songs. I brought in half the songs. We made each other's songs better is what we did. When he left the band, right before COVID is when he left the band. Him and his wife had a child. He just came to me one day and said, I don't want to ever become that dude in the band that's the weak link, and, I'm raising my daughter now, and I don't feel like I have what it takes to, keep doing this. And so that's when he bowed out. And so when that happened, I was devastated because A, one of my best friends ever, B, my songwriting partner, C, we recorded at his studio. I didn't even have a studio. And he had all the know-how. When he left, at that point, I just had like this little old 18-track recorder, a standalone workstation. I didn't even know anything about running Pro Tools. But when he left, it was like, well, I guess I have to figure this out alone now, And so I sold all my gear and got new gear, and I got Pro Tools, and I just started making demos here. Getting back to your question, that is how my process came to be, because it was different before. My process now is, and of course it varies per song, because a song like Fireball, I'm an animal, breaking all the law, shots going down, that was premeditated. We were opening for Grim Reaper and Doro Pesh during the first Cyanide album, and when we got out there, the first Cyanide album is just a Sunset Strip party album. It's just party, 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 party. There's really no actual metal on there. But once we were opening for bands like that, I realized we don't have any metal to offer this crowd, So we started throwing in a Judas Priest, Metallica, Iron Maiden. I was already an Iron Maiden cover band. And that's when it hit me, you know, when we get around to doing the next album, I want not just my Motley Crue and Kiss influences and my Rat influences, but I want my Metallica, my Iron Maiden, my Judas Priest. There's even a little bit of Slayer and Anthrax on a couple of the songs on this new record that crept in there. So Fireball. I had it in my head because we had been playing Free Will Burning by Judas Priest, and I had it in my head that the next Cyanide album, it must open with a fast, heavy song. And right away, I'm thinking Judas Priest. I'm thinking high, screaming vocals, and all I had at that point was I had the title Fireball, and I had the Is Everybody High, you know, scream in my head. Is everybody high? And I built the song around that. And how that happened was I came in here and I start playing my guitar. A few hours later, I've arranged the composition of the song, just guitar. By the time I'm done recording the guitar to a click track, the drums have already formulated themselves in my head somehow, which I consider to be a huge blessing. And so once the guitar takes me a long time, I'm not a good guitar player, but I can get by enough to write these songs. As soon as I'm done with that, I immediately go over here. There's a drum set right next to me, and the drums are done in like 5 minutes. I mean, literally the whole time I'm playing guitar, I can already tell what I'm going to play on drums. And then when it's done, I just go do it. And then that's over with. And then I put some bass on there. You know, I might add other guitar tracks, start layering vocals, whatnot. But then there's other songs like Sweet Little Trash on the new record. Are you sweet little trash? I was asleep in the midst of a glorious dream that it was still 1989 and they still played heavy metal on the radio. In this dream, I'm listening to the radio and the DJ says, here's the brand new single from Rat. And the song starts playing. And it was so good that it woke me up. It's like 2:00 in the morning. And normally when something like that happens, a few minutes later, you can't even remember what you were just dreaming about, you know? Mm-hmm. But in this case, the whole song was just playing in my head as if it already existed. And so I jumped out of my bed and I ran in here in the studio and I got enough of it down so that I wouldn't forget any of it. And it became Sweet Little Trash. And it's pretty much exactly how it is on the record is how I was hearing it in my dream. So it varies. And then there might be sometimes like social media disease. All I knew was that I saw everybody fighting on the internet every day about various things. And I see family members disowning each other over a difference of opinion on, you know, and I see people just intentionally going on people's posts and just with them, you know, like they've got nothing better to do. And so that's when the title Social Media Disease came to me, because I am watching all this happen on the interwebs. Like, God, social media, I got to write a song about this, you know? And so I came in here with just a title, knowing that I wanted to write something fast and heavy that had to do with that. And so Take What You Want, we were talking about Take What You Want earlier. Don't ever take what they give you. Take what you want. I'm a long-suffering Oakland Raiders.
Oh no! We suck again!
Now Las Vegas Raiders fan. I grew up a Raiders fan. My dad was a Raiders fan. And so, you know.
They moved closer to you.
They did. They came here
to be near
me. There was a point in my life where I was trying to figure out how I could move to the Bay Area so I could be near the Raiders. And it didn't quite work out, but then they found me. And so this one night, I'm up late drinking, watching these old Raiders DVDs. And there's this Al Davis interview from like 1960. Maybe it's 62. I'm not sure exactly the year, but he's talking about his football philosophies. And he says these words. He says, people always tell me to take what the defense is giving me. And he says, and I always went the other way with that. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take what I want. They'll only use and abuse you. Take what you want. Light bulb. Take what you want. Absolutely. And so the whole the whole premise of Take What You Want is that whole Raiders mentality of the 60s and 70s, when they were a scary team. Teams were sometimes afraid to go play the Raiders.
I didn't care as much about being respected as I cared about being feared.
So they might get their head taken off.
I love the idea that I know down deep they fear us.
Same with the fans.
Yeah, same with the fans. And they were very intimidating in the 70s. And Al's interview and the way he was, it was like that team became like the embodiment of his psyche. And so I was like, I have to write a song for that man, just for everything that he created. And even if, people that hate the Raiders, they still realized, man, Al Davis was a bad man. He took on the whole entire NFL and won. He takes what he wants. And so that's what the whole song is about. It's about those Raider teams and how they just went out there and took what they wanted. And it applies to all of us. If you really want something out of life, nobody is going to give it to you, hardly ever. And so if you really want something that bad, you really just kind of have to go out there and make it happen. So,
rock and roll and life lessons all in one.
Another song, I love telling these stories about how these songs came to be. Rock and Roll Army. We want you, the Rock and Roll Army. We want you. I am power. Is the first song that I ever wrote with my dear friend Danny Goldstein, who's no longer with us. We met in 8th grade, and we didn't like each other at first. I was kind of an asshole of a kid in junior high school, and so, but somehow we would still talk about music even though we weren't really friends. And so he tells me one day that he's got this band, and I'm like, shut up, you ain't got no band. He's like, yeah, man, we got this song, Rock and Roll Army, and he sings the chorus to me. And like, my opinion of Danny Goldstein instantly changed. Like, suddenly I like this dude. I want to be friends with this guy. That's a good song. I tell him, what's the rest of it? And he's like, well, that's all we got. Like, we're looking for a drummer though. And I heard you play drums. And so they came over to my house and we set everything up. And, we're like 14 years old. I think Danny was 12 and he had just been playing guitar for a little while. And so he had the riff, he had the chorus. There's nothing else going on about the song though. And at that point, we didn't even know that the bass player and the drummer are supposed to be tuned to the same, So that was like our first order of business, was figuring out, why does this sound so crappy? And then I said, I think you guys are supposed to tune your E string to this. It's supposed to sound the same. I didn't know how to put it into words back then, And so we do that. And so then we instantly sounded way better because now we're in tune. And when we wrote that song, Rock and Roll Army, and that band was only together for 9 months. Danny and I stayed friends, and right up until the end though. Over the course of time, that song was forgotten about. We never recorded it. We sometimes would joke around about it because, we'd be like, remember how bad we sucked back then, And then one day Danny tells me he's writing this book, and he starts asking me all these questions about things we did when we were teenagers, because we had so many different bands together. Rock and Roll Army was one of the main things that we were talking about, and then that's when I said to him, when your book's done, man, I'm going to record this song just for us, so we can have it, because how funny would that be? Yeah, let's do it. And so the book comes out. The book's called Music Won't Pay the Bills. His author name is Goldie Jr. The book comes out and there's like this giant section in the middle. It's all about Rock and Roll Army. And so I'm reading the book and I'm like, okay, Danny, now I'm definitely going to record this song. We have to have this. Before I could actually get around to doing it, he was gone. It was sudden and tragic. And I was like, the day after he passed away, I was just like, I can't believe that I didn't even get that done for him. I came up here in my studio and I'm sitting here trying to remember, how did this song even go? I remember Rock and Roll Army. We want you. We want you. The Rock and Roll Army. We want you. I empowered more. Nothing else about the song. And so I call up our other band members, the ones that are still with us. They didn't remember either. And so I look up at the sky. I'm in here in this room. I look up at the sky and I'm like, Danny, how the did this song start? And within 30 seconds, I was playing it, the whole song. And then I wrote new lyrics for it because admittedly, our lyrics in 1986 were not fit for musical consumption. And I honestly couldn't even remember what the words were, but I knew they weren't good. And so I kept "We Want You," Rock and Roll Army, and I wrote new lyrics. I never could quite remember how the beginning went, so I just, came up with a different thing. And that is how Rock and Roll Army came to exist. It's like every song on the record came about in a completely different way.
Well, you're going to have to
guess-
write your book now because these stories are awesome with this album.
I really just love the whole songwriting thing and how different it always is. I'm really looking forward. I'll be honest with you, when Mark left and I knew that if I was gonna make a new Cyanide record, it was gonna have to be on my own, because there's no way I'm gonna put together a band and we're gonna argue about writing these songs and it's gonna no, I'm just gonna do it. It's gonna be really just for me, whether I do anything with it or not. I honestly didn't really think I'd be able to carry an entire album by myself. I had 21 Gun Salute, which Mark and I had written together. 21 Gun Salute! I had Rock and Roll Army that Danny and I had written together in 1986. Although I hadn't started recording that. So I had Fireball, which I wrote alone. 21 Gun Salute that we wrote together. And Take What You Want, which I wrote alone. And honestly, before Mark left, I really kind of thought that might be the extent of my output on this record, because now that I'm firmly the singer and we had a band, I was thinking I would just be the singer and I wouldn't write riffs anymore. So once Mark left and I realized that I had to do this by myself, and I doubted that I could actually do it, but much like with the Iron Maiden singing Climbing Mount Dickinson, I was like, well, I'm never going to know unless I try it. So sooner or later I had 5 songs, and then I had 7 songs. And once I got to like 9, I was like, wow, I'm really going to do this, and sure enough. And so now that I proved to myself that I could do that, I'm really excited about this next Cyanide album, because when I look back over my favorite songwriters, it seems like this is the point in time in their existence where they would have written their best songs. And so I'm really thinking whatever I come up with next is going to be way better than even the first 2 Cyanide albums. And I really just can't, if I didn't love this record so much and I want to work it until there's just no legs left on it, if that wasn't the case, I'd probably already be working on it. And I do have quite a bit of stuff written, but I'm just not actively working on it. But I really think that is going to be, after that, it'll be all downhill, right? The 3rd album will be the best thing I've ever done. And then people will start saying, he's lost it.
Or he sold out.
Yeah, he sold out. Oh God, remember that?
You got the Taylor Swift covered on the 4th album.
I remember when there was all kinds of stories growing up about kids saying this band sold out, that band sold out. The most glaring one was when Theater of Pain came out. Like every kid at school was like, Motley Crue sold out. He's got pink pants. Smoking in the boys' room. And much like with Dynasty by Kiss, I had no problem with the outfits. I had no problem with the album. I thought it was a great album. Now suddenly I'm fighting with people about Motley Crue,
So you have these songs, then you have to find a way to get it out there. What's that process like? I mean, you have to get physical media. You got to get now streaming media.
I'll tell you, the first Cyanide record was just streaming. There was no thought about, oh, we should see if a record label is interested in us, like that just seemed ridiculous. And so streaming only. In fact, that record had been on streaming sites for about 4 years and had not done a damn thing. I think after 4 years, I think it had maybe 10,000 plays total. And then The Dirt came out in 2019. And I remember waking up one morning and I had an email from Spotify and it said, you had 9,000 listeners yesterday. And I'm like, oh, that has to be a mistake, I wasn't even paying attention to Spotify at that point. I was against streaming, in fact. Screw streaming, man. It's physical media or nothing. I had no idea that everyone was gonna, decide that that's what we're doing. We're streaming. When I realized it wasn't a mistake and it was Nikki Sixx in Disguise, it was the song Nikki Sixx in Disguise. It was just getting played like crazy. And it's because his name is in the title and there's some kind of algorithm that recognizes that he's in Motley Crue, and suddenly Motley Crue is having a resurgence because of the dirt. And because of that, I end up with this hit song it's now got like, over 1 million streams now.
Oh, wow.
For the one song, and pretty crazy, all because of that movie. And so
because you have physical media for this new one, so I want you to, if somebody wants that physical media, we got to know where to get it.
During the Lethal Dose era of Cyanide, I became friends with quite a few people online in the land of Facebook, other musicians in other cities, and at some point, I'm trying to even remember how. It might have been Mike Floros from the band Steel City. Could have been him that put me in touch with John Kivel from Kivel Records. Because once again, while I was recording the new Cyanide album, I certainly didn't think any record label is going to be interested in this guy from Las Vegas that's, never really done anything. And the next thing I know, I'm talking to John Kivel, and then it turns out he wants me on the Kivel Records label, and he's going to release 21 Gun Salute. And so that is how 21 Gun Salute came to be released by Kivel Records. And that is where you can get the physical CD, kivelrecords.com, in their store. They've got Babylon AD and so many great bands on that label right now. And so I was just honored that, he even thought enough of me to include me on his label. That was exciting. And especially in the era that we live in now, you can't really go around thinking that like Geffen's going to call you up. Here comes Elektra offering me a 5-album deal. That's not going to happen. So like the fact that any record label at all liked my music was just such a huge honor. And so I would never be able to thank Kivel Records enough for getting that album out there. I'm actually now at the point, it's done well enough now that I'm going to do a vinyl release. I've been pondering it, and the cost of vinyl has been such that I don't want to have to order 200 copies and not know if I'm going to sell them. And now maybe I'm stuck with these boxes of vinyl. So, but now that you can have a print on demand vinyl store where you don't have to have that giant, inventory of product, I'm finally going to put the first Cyanide album out and 21 Gun Salute on vinyl. And so with that in mind, I've redesigned and reimagined the artwork for both album covers and the back covers and the book. Like everything's going to be new, exciting, and reimagined. I'm going to get going on that,
Well, my next question was who designed the album cover itself?
The 21 Gun Salute album cover, John Kivel hired him. He is the guy that did the album cover for Judas Priest's Firepower, and he did this album cover. Kivel put that together with
Claudio Berganum.
Thank you.
Bergamanin.
This CD isn't unwrapped, so I couldn't open it and look.
Well, we'll have the link to the address that you can buy that physical CD right there. So
yeah,
I got one more thing prior to that, because I really want to know this. Like, Rob, what is the song you're most proud of? When somebody asks what Rob or Cyanide's all about, what's something that you could point them to? What's the song that you point to? This is me.
Ooh, that's a good question. That is a tough one, especially with this new record, because in a lot of ways, it's such a musical journey, like it starts out heavy. And then it gets a little bit glammy for a little while. Your reign of terror is done. And then it drifts back into even heavier than it started out with. And then it ends with the cover of the Climax Blues Band song, I Love You. There's an interesting story of how that song came to be.
All right, because we got to hear that, because actually I heard that on the way home today, and I'm like, that's, I know Brad and Doug are a little bit more critical when it comes to covers, but I thought that was great, and I thought you did it justice. So I'd love to hear that story.
So I had written "Never Let Me Go," which is the other ballad on the record. Never let me go. and I had finished the bass, guitar, and drums. And for whatever reason, I had nothing going on up here as far as melody, title, anything to do with the vocals, you know. And it was like 4 months later, still nothing. And I'm starting to think, is this song going to end up being an instrumental that I never could finish? And then one day, this magical melody comes to me, and I'm like, oh God. And I run in here in the studio and I fire up Never Let Me Go. And I'm starting to work this melody idea. And then it hits me like, it reminds me of something. And I could not put my finger on it. I know this reminds me of a song, though, that already exists. So I already know I can't use it, unfortunately. But what is this song, this magical song that I'm hearing in my head? Is it that I thought Elton John sang this song because I was like such a little kid when it was like the #1 single on Billboard. But I remember loving the song when I was a kid.
When I was a younger man, I hadn't a care.
And thinking it was Elton John. And so, you know, when I'm sitting here trying to figure out what it was, I go scouring Elton John's entire catalog, which is quite formidable. There's a lot of stuff to go through there, and I couldn't find it. And I'm like, I know Elton John sang that song, man. I didn't even know what it was called, though. And finally I realized it's that song called I Love You. And so then once I had the title and Googled it, of course, Climax Blues Band comes up. And I go listen to the song and I'm like, oh God, I haven't heard this song since I was a little kid. I love this song. You know what? I'm going to cover it and put it on the record. There's some reason why I found this song after all these years. I have to do this. And so that's why that song is on the record, because I couldn't think of anything to sing for my other ballad. Thankfully, after that, a melody did come, and Never Let Me Go
Break down the walls for you.
was finished as well. And so that's why there's 2 ballads on the album. There was only supposed to be 1.
Take my last breath for you. I'm so in love with.
But once I ran across I Love You, I couldn't say no to that. I mean, that song is just timeless.
When you do a cover like that, is there kind of a permission process that you have to go through to record?
Well, I released the album digitally through DistroKid. So the streaming release is through DistroKid. And part of that process of releasing that is they ask you if there's any cover songs on here. And so then once you say yes, and you add the information, and so they now handle that for you. So you pay a fee, and then they get you the license so that you can put the song on your record. I think, like, let's say if I wanted to make a video for that song, I'm pretty sure there's another process I would have to go through for that. And so that might keep me from putting that out as a single. But at the same time, I'm thinking, I don't even know that I need to put that out as a single, because people know that song and people are already going and playing it. So yeah, I don't know. I want to shoot a video for that song, but you know, I really just haven't. There's so much going on with everything that I just haven't even begun to get into that process of how I would get.
So ultimately, when thousands of people see this video and that blows up, there's some royalties that'll go that way to the Climax.
I hope so, man, because when I think of the guitar player's name of Climax Blues Band, his last name is Holt, I want to say. Man, I am having a hard time remembering stuff today, aren't I?
We're putting the names right down below.
Yeah.
So.
He deserves to be a millionaire for writing that song, in my opinion, you know. That song gives me goosebumps. And of course, I still prefer their version because it's the original. And I tried my best to not change anything at all about the vocal. You know, I tried to keep his melody as much as I could. And then musically, of course, it's a little different because my musical style is a little bit different than their band. And also, when I was working it out here alone in my studio, it was only acoustic guitar and a clean rhythm guitar. Once I got into the studio because that's how my process worked. So I made all of the demos here, right? The songs are fully finished in this room right here, fully arranged, lyrics, choruses, backing vocal, everything's there, right? The only thing that's really not there is good guitar playing, because that is not something that I offer. And so it's funny because Ozzy had put out his Patient Number 9 record, and he didn't have a band for that record. He had guest lead guitar players on every song. And so I was working on my record when that record came out. And so when I saw that, I said, I'm just going to ask a bunch of my friends that are great guitar players to come put solos on this record. And what ended up happening is that Jason Constantine, who was producing the record initially before Ty Sims ended up taking over and finishing it, Jason was really good friends with Jeff Duncan from Armored Saint. Good enough friends that he could call him up and say, hey, Jeff, would you come down here and play on this record? And, I knew Jeff a little bit at the time. We weren't like close friends, but, we hung out and I knew him. And so he said yes. And so he came over and he ended up redoing all of my rhythm guitar tracks on that song and just really making them better.
We're meant to be together.
And then later on, a gentleman by the name of Eric Johnson came in, and then he added even more awesome rhythm guitar stuff on there. Those harmonies during the verses and choruses is all Eric Johnson. Jeff Duncan is the clean guitar parts, like at the beginning of the song. And somehow I end up playing the guitar solo on that song because I had put a solo on there as a place marker. I never intended for anybody to hear it because I do not consider myself a good guitar player at all. Something happened with the sessions, the solos that were on there for that song. Jeff Duncan had laid something down. Stoney Curtis had laid something down on Never Let Me Go. Mike Varney of Metal Blade Records fame, he was going to do the solo on I Love You. We did it remotely, and then something happened with the stems and the way they were put in the sessions. I really couldn't explain to you why there was a problem with it. But at some point when the original producer, Jason, left the project and I started working with Ty Sims to finish it, when we got the sessions, we couldn't use those solos for whatever reason. And I was really bummed out because I thought Jeff and Mike Varney had both done an amazing job on their stuff. And I was going to like have the first solo be one guy and the second solo be the other guy, but we couldn't use the tracks. And then Ty hears the demo of that placeholder solo I had, and he didn't know that I had played it. And so when he sent me a mix, then suddenly there's my solo on there. And I'm like, oh, no. That's and he's like, dude, there's nothing wrong with that solo. It's fine. It's very tasteful. Maybe like something George Harrison would play, he says. And so, how much I love the Beatles, and I'm certainly not thinking that it is that. But when he said that, it got me to agree to, okay, yeah, we could use that. All right, if you're going to go ahead and compliment me like that, yeah, we could use it. So that's how that all came to be.
So if I go back to my original question and said, what is Rob Hüssey? You're just going to hand me that CD and say, this is my journey. This is my life journey right here.
This is, because if I gave you the first album, it's kind of all the same stuff, and so it'd be easy to say on that record, well, is it Pump It To Me?
Pump it to me. Anytime, any place, baby, just scream.
Or is it Bitches to Blame? It's
Hey, pills, I'm afraid, going down in flames, bitches to blame.
It's one of those two songs. This record, though, I really couldn't pick one because the whole thing kind of has to go together in order for it to make sense. So yeah, that is, if I ever was going to get around to answering the original question, it's probably
I wasn't gonna let you go on that.
This whole record is what Robert Hussey's all about. He's about Motley Crue, Kiss, Rat, Van Halen, but he's also about Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and Slayer, because when I was in junior high school, I didn't discriminate, man. I walked in the store one day and bought a Rat album the same day I bought a Slayer album. I did not care. Other kids at school were not that way, though. It was like either or. The Thrashers didn't really like me because I sometimes would have eyeliner on at school, or I'd have my hair. My hair was black back then, and it was more like a Nikki Sixx spiked do. And so I'd get called a poser a lot, I remember the first day of 10th grade, I walked past this dude in the hall. He looked a lot like Dave Mustaine, and I didn't know him. He walks past me and he goes, "You poser." And I turn around and I'm like, dude. And he freaked out. He was like, don't, the song, Don't Call Me Dude?
Yeah.
Dude, don't call me dude. Well, he meant it. He was livid. He was like, don't you ever call me dude? And he starts coming at me, dude. And we end up getting in a fight. I end up kicking this kid's ass in front of like the whole entire school. The rest of 10th grade was so enjoyable after that. Like it happened like the first day or maybe the first week of school. And then after that, there was no more problems. So I guess I should thank that kid. And then I never saw him again. He never came back to school after that. I do not think that he was able to come to terms with the fact that the kid at the Nikki Sixx hair and the eyeliner beat him up.
Wonder what he's up to now. Brad,
I know. I'd like to, I hope he's not still mad at me.
So Rob, I want to transition a little bit. Before I do, though, I do have, because I have a couple of questions to end tonight, but I want to go back to your album. I want to talk about two of the things I want to talk about are all the musicians that you have on there, and you talked a little bit about that. But Oz Fox, you had Oz Fox on there, some other guys, and then the last thing I want to know about this album before we transition is the Get Up and Dance video you got coming out in May. So can you talk a little bit about how do you get together with a guy like Oz Fox and some of these, and you got a video out with Brett Muscat too, him singing Bathroom Wall with Brett Muscat.
Yeah.
We all met his brother in Junkyard, but big Faster Pussycat fans, and for you to get on stage and sing of those with that guy, like, how do you get with all these musicians?
For starters, they live here. So I was in this band called Out of the Black. It was just a cover band back in like, I want to say 2012. I was the new guy in that band. They already existed. And I got invited to sing for the band. And so I showed up to rehearsal and we're playing Soldiers Under Command by Stryper, right? And I'm so excited because like, what a cool band that would cover this song, you know? And then suddenly Oz Fox walks into the rehearsal. That's Oz Fox. You know, this is the first time something like that's ever happened to me. So I was having a hard time not freaking out about it. But it turns out he was just there to jam with the band because he was going to get up on stage with us. I didn't know this. And so that's how I met Oz. And then over the years, just, you know, running into him at Counts Vamped repeatedly. He was in the audience, actually, the night we did that show where I sang Soldiers Under Command. And when I did the high scream at the end, jumped out of his seat and like, and I was so excited because
Nice.
There was a time in like 1986 when I went to see Stryper and I'm wandering around the venue after the show. Me and my friend Danny Goldstein, our only wish is somehow can we meet Stryper, you know? And we're like praying. We're like, please God, let us meet Stryper and we will be better kids. We promise. And I pushed this door open and there's Stryper just standing there. I pushed the door open to their dressing room or whatever. I don't even know how we were allowed back there. You know, they signed our Stryper Bibles and I got an Oz Fox guitar pick. And so, you know, that was huge for me at that age. But I mean,
did you hold up your end of the bargain with that
did
prayer?
for like a whole month at school. I was like trying to convert all my stoner friends to becoming born again Christians, you know. Nobody was wanting to hear it, but I was very persistent. And so I did try to spread the Lord's word for quite some time after that. And it you know, and that's how I came to know Oz because of the band Out of the Black. And so I actually just sent him a message on Facebook. Oz, I'm making this record. I've got 2 really heavy songs. I know you're like huge into Sabbath. I thought maybe you might be the guy to do these 2 solos. And he just said yes.
Wow.
And he did it. He did it at his place, sent it over, and we dropped it in there. And thankfully, those solos didn't get messed up in the transfer of the sessions. That would have really bummed me out if we would have had to replace those. And
well,
and then
we'll put the Bible verse on there: "Ask and thy shall receive." Right?
I mean, we literally were just like, please let us meet Stryper. And then there they were. So like,
so tell us about this video coming up in May. When's it going to be released and what's going on with the video?
May 15th will be Get Up and Dance video world premiere on the official Cyanide Vivo YouTube channel. Cyanide LV is our YouTube. The single will come out the same day. So it'll be like Thursday night at 9 p.m. You should be able to watch the video and listen to, I mean, the single's obviously already out because it's on the record, but
Just take a
The official single release is May 15th with the video. Adrian Leon once again directed this video. Adrian is a fantastic movie director. He has movies out on Amazon and stuff. You know, he's done a lot of stuff. He's worked with Duran Duran and some other big names. I just happen to know him from like 20 years ago when he was just starting out as a music video guy. He made a video for my old band, and it was the first music video he had ever made. So I think maybe I hold a fond spot in his heart because of that, and the same for me to him. And so when I needed a director, I suddenly became aware that I ran across him on Facebook because he was friends with Corey Coker. It's such a small world, right? Corey has been booking my bands at Vamped for years, and now suddenly she knows Adrian, and now because she knew Adrian, I got back in touch with him, and so now he did the Slip and Slide video.
if you want some action.
And it's already out. You can see it now on our YouTube channel. And then Get Up and Dance, he just sent me the finished final cut yesterday, which I've uploaded. It's doing all whatever thing happens with that after you send it off into the world, and it will be available for human consumption on May 15th.
I'm going to mark that on the calendar. I want to transition to how I actually virtually met you, I guess, so to speak. And it was, we came across your video for the tryout for Skid Row, and talked about it a little bit in the opening, but what made you want to try out for Skid Row and being vulnerable and put yourself out there, not only for Skid Row, but for the whole world to see? And what was the actual process like?
When I was 20, what was I? I think I was 20 when Slave to the Grind came out. And that's when I was still a drummer, but fancied myself a singer, you know. And I would go to our rehearsal studio all the time and just sing for hours, you know, through the PA, sing along to my favorite albums. Slave to the Grind was one of those albums. And I used to be able to sing that whole album all the way through from start to finish, all the screams, everything with no backing vocal help. You know, I could not do that today, I don't think. That is a tall order, man. Those are some vocals on that record. But ever since then, Sebastian was always, you know, one of my favorite voices ever in metal. You know, I firmly feel like his voice is up there with Halford and Dickinson and all my favorites. And his vocal performance on the Slave to the Grind album still, you know, an argument could be made that is the single greatest heavy metal vocal performance on a metal record. You know, of course, we could, everyone would argue about this for days because there's so many albums. But ever since then, you know, Skid Row was one of my favorite bands. And when they broke up, you know, I still was a Skid Row fan. I still was a Sebastian fan. I've always been like that, you know, same with Motley when Vince left, you know, I was on both their sides. And so, gosh, I've met Sebastian a bunch of times lately here in Vegas because he's around Counts Vamped a lot when it was open, and he's good friends with Danny Coker, who's a good friend of mine. And so, you know, I saw his concert last summer when he put his new record out. You know, God, he's still getting it done, you know, he's still just. And so anyway, when that last Skid Row album came out, The Gang's All Here. Great album, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I first heard it, I was like, holy shit, they've conjured the spirit of the old Skid Row, you know? And Eric Gronwall, the singer on that record, oh my God, the voice on that guy, you know? Anyway, when he left and, you know, they started talking about Skid Row needing a singer, you know, of course, you know, in my head, I'm like, God, wouldn't that be something? I opened for Skid Row back in 2015 when Johnny Solinger was their singer. And that was a hugely fun experience. And so I always dream big, you know, and so I was dreaming like I might be able to somehow try out for this band, but it wasn't until the Sweetwater thing happened. And, you know, now it's real. Now I can try out if I want to. Well, now I'm scared, you know, like you said, putting myself out there, trying to sing Sebastian Bach stuff is, you know, it was intimidating, you know, a little bit. Am I really going to do this? And I let several weeks go by while I'm watching everyone else's videos, you know, and God, there's so many good ones. And so that's also got me thinking like, gosh, I don't know, man. But then, like you said, a lot of those videos were the same. And to me, they didn't really capture the spirit of Skid Row. And so the more I thought about it, I was like, I have to submit a video. Like, I doubt they're going to call me, but if I don't at least submit a video, they're definitely not going to call me, you know? And so, you know, in my head, I'm just thinking, well, I want the video to be 100% real me, you know, like, so that's why I stood in here here and did my voice intro. What's always drawn me to Skid Row is that balance. There's attitude, but there's also control. Everyone's video was them in a recording studio or their podcast studio or whatever it was, you know, headphones on and they're singing along to their track. And I was like, if Skid Row even sees this, I want them to see what they're going to get live. It's about respecting the song, delivering them the way the fans expect, showing up prepared, taking care of my voice, being someone the band can trust on and off stage. And so I recorded the vocals here at home, but I resisted the temptation to layer them and make them something that they're not. You know, I made sure that it's just one vocal take. This is what you're going to get if you happen to choose me. I understand what it takes to step into something that already means a lot to people and do it right. I'm here because I love this music. I respect what you've built, and I know I can contribute to it in a real lasting way. Like here you can see me live, you can hear what it would sound like live. I did sing along to it in that room though, because I didn't think that I would be able to get the kind of sound quality that I wanted. And I am not much of a video editor, so I was like, I don't really know how I will drop that audio track over the video. So I just recorded the vocals with their music here at the studio, and then I went down there to Count's Desert Moon Studios, and I, you know, the Cyanide stuff was already set up, and I thought, well, because we had just filmed the Get Up and Dance video there, and I thought, well, I'm gonna roll with that, man. It's gonna be 100%. This is who I am, and if you like it, you know, give me a call, man, because I would be the guy that wouldn't let you down. And so that's really how the whole thing came about. You know, I went back and forth, you know, of whether I was actually going to do it.
It feels to me you conjured up some Al Davis and take what you want.
I had a dream.
I always think about it, you know, whenever anything gets tough in life, I always think about Al Davis and that whole philosophy, you know, and it has served me well in a lot of really crazy situations.
Pride and poise, a commitment to excellence, everything he talked about, he lived about it, he brought.
So I got to ask, have you heard from Skid Row? How have you handled the feedback?
We want to dominate the environment.
From what I saw online, you handled it with class. I mean, there was some good stuff, but there was some not so good stuff. But every one of those you responded to, and I was impressed with that, and that made me want to reach out to you because it was handled with class. I wouldn't be so nice, probably.
You know, I thought about it. If I was even going to do this video, right? What if they did call me? You know, whoever they choose is going to face a shitstorm of haters and insults. And so I told myself right from the beginning, like, if you're going to do this, you can't possibly get upset at the people out there that suffer from social media disease. They're going to do what they do, you know, and their job is basically to scour the internet daily and go screw with people, you know, and see if they can wreck your day. And so I told myself from the very beginning, I'm not going there, man. I'm gonna take it all,
Just win.
and I'm gonna appreciate the fact that anyone would even watch it, because I didn't think when I put the video out that it's gonna get that many views in such a short amount of time. And I got to admit, I was expecting more negative comments. It was a few days before I saw a bad one. And of course, when I first saw it, you know, it stung a little bit. I'm like, ouch, dang, another hamburger. He didn't even ask me if I wanted fries with that. You know, and then I just thought, well, that is the way. That's the only way to exist in this industry. If you're going to be out there, is like, people are going to say stuff like that. And you're going to just have to learn how to have fun with it, or else you're going to be a very miserable individual. And I really appreciate what you just said, you know, about how you appreciate it, because I did think to myself, that I want to be classy about this, and so you recognize that. And so,
Yeah, no problem. I mean, like I said, that's kind of what I said to the guys. I'm like, I want to talk to this guy because one, I've just been curious about the process, and I know that Skid Row has been getting a lot of slack, and then whoever they do choose, if they do stick with this process, it's not going to be easy for Skid Row or this person. But the fact that you responded to each one of those comments, I just like, well, I got to talk to this guy, and I'm glad I did because one, I get to see what Cyanide's all about too. I not only get to meet you, but get to hear your music. So not that you made that, not that you made that for us, but it's just a byproduct of putting yourself out there and being vulnerable like that. And hopefully this can reach more people as well, so they can see what you're about.
in a way, maybe I did without even knowing it. Maybe I did make it for you guys and everyone out there, because I'll admit, as I was doing it, I wasn't thinking to myself, yeah, I'm going to be the next singer of Skid Row. I was just thinking I'm going to have fun with this. And, if anything, maybe some people that haven't ever heard of me might like what I do. And so, gosh, I feel like I already won just because we're having this conversation.
Just win.
We do really appreciate it.
I'm just so thankful that you took the time to talk with us. Being in 3 different tribute bands, having your own band, and like you said earlier, you also have a full-time job. I'm guessing you probably, 2-3 hours a night is what you get for sleep because you're a really busy guy playing all the instruments for the album. I mean, that's hats off to you for taking the time to talk to us. That was great.
Wow. You guys are making my whole year. Thank you. Good stuff.
It was great meeting you, and so glad you gave us this time. Coming into us, didn't know what to expect this interview. Now, hopefully you get a lot more fans. Now, hopefully your personality's shown through this.
I didn't care as much about being respected as I cared about being feared.
Just appreciate your time.
I appreciate you guys, man. And any time that you guys want to do this again, as far as I'm concerned, the day that I decided I wanted to play music, that means that this is what I do, and if somebody wants to talk to me, I'm going to talk to them, so I appreciate what you guys do.
We got to get down to Vegas at some point too. I would love to meet you in person and see your band. I don't know how often you travel outside of Vegas, but your personality shining through and your stories, and like this to me is what rock and roll was all about. And you're living the dream that I had when I was 15, seeing Dr. Feelgood tour. And I hear, yeah, and I hear you, the stuff you were talking about, that was me as a 15-year-old. So the fact that I get that you have another job and all that, but you're still doing what you love and playing music. And to me, that's rock and roll. So,
and we love rock and roll, don't we?
We do.
Gosh, I fully recognize and respect the fact that rock and roll is why I'm probably still here, like everyone's life gets tough, and man, those songs and those records and those bands got us through some tough times when we were growing up. And then I'll just never forget that. So I built this website with the idea that, no matter how many different things I end up doing, I can have it all in one place for everybody, So with that in mind, I built this website, cyaniderocks.com. It has a separate page for each of the 3 tribute bands, and Cyanide's the main, the landing page is Cyanide. And so if you land on the website, all our videos are there, right there on the, the main menu right there is all of our links, every streaming link, every social link for all the bands is all right there in one spot on the homepage of cyaniderocks.com. And then of course you can go to each individual band's page and so all the Cyanide videos are there. And if you wanted to go follow us on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever streaming site that you prefer, you can just click on it right from there. If you wanted to buy the CD, with that link is all over the website. there's a little icon link, and then at the bottom of every page, it literally says to purchase the CD, go to Kivel Records, and there's the clickable link. And so yeah, it's basically a giant EPK for all 4 bands. CyanideRocks.com.
Well, Rob, I don't want to take too much more of your time.
God, I could do this all night.
I know.
Man.
I feel like I could do this all night too. But we do appreciate the time that you've given us. Just nice getting to know you, and I definitely hope we can do this again down the road.
Absolutely, anytime. And if you guys find yourself planning a trip to Vegas, let me know ahead of time, and I'll try to make sure we're basically doing a once a month thing here at the Tuscany. You know, Red Hot, Play Dirty, Flight 666, and then it starts all over. You know, and then Cyanide is the opening act. So if you're ever coming out here, I could let you know what the show dates are, and if you're able to, you could come out here and catch a show. My goal is to just have a residency where people know if they're coming to Vegas, they could catch a Poison show, a Motley Crue show, an Iron Maiden show, or a Cyanide show. And at some point, I'm going to add some other stuff to it. I'm lucky that I have like the same nucleus of musicians to do all. It would be really hard if it was different band members for every one of them.
Sure.
And so I was asked because we got offered a really cool show next March here in Vegas, a pretty big one. And they wanted Motley Crue and Iron Maiden, and they, for whatever reason, they weren't really down with the Poison, but they're like, can you do an Ozzy? I'm like, well, yeah, actually, as long as the singer has blonde hair, I don't have to wear a wig. I'm good with it. Not that I wouldn't, but if I don't have to, I'd rather not. And so, we're that night next March, I think it's March 13th, is going to be a big show at a pretty big place. And it's going to be Motley Crue, and then Ozzy, and then Iron Maiden. Yeah.
So when Skid Row does call you back and you're on Skid Row, you're not going to forget about us little people, right?
I would never. I mean, it doesn't matter whatever happens to me. Maybe in my earlier 20s or something, if something like that would have happened, I might have let myself get a big head about it. But, I know exactly what the score is, the entire music business at this point. And so, I'm just going to appreciate whatever comes along. And so, yeah, if that did happen, I won't change.
Nice.
I'm going to always be the same dude that plays his Kiss records and gets excited when Iron Maiden says they've got a movie coming out that you could go to the theater and watch. These are the things that keep me going. So yeah, that's just always going to be me.
Well, everybody in the world, this is Rob Hüssey. It's Cyanide. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it, your time.
I appreciate you guys. And like I said, anytime.
Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Never stop rocking.
Never stop. We gotta keep it alive.
I know you're taking you just had a practice today too, so you taking the time to come chat with us is awesome.
And we went out last night. We went to see Love Drive, the Scorpions tribute they're from California, and they come through every now and again. There was talk about that I would go get up and sing a song with them last night, but it looked like we were not going to do that. And so because of that, I think I mentioned if I'm singing, I'm not drinking until after, but I didn't think I was singing. So I was drinking freely. And then all of a sudden they're like, let's get Robert Hüssey up here. And of course it's No One Like You, one of the hardest Scorpion songs to sing. And I thought we were singing it together, but no, he wanted and so I'm going to be honest. It wasn't my best performance.
Oh no, we suck again.
But that's rock and roll. And so because of that, we were out late. And so I was literally the living example of I went to bed too late and got up too soon this morning.
I went to bed too late and got up too soon.
All right,
I love
Rob.
doing these video interviews, and I love what you guys, I love your room right there with your swag too. That's cool.
Well, of course, your favorite one is the album, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Hard
Rob.
rock knockers.
Thank you. And to Rob Hüssey, if you make it this far in this video, or if you skipped ahead just to see this part, go back and watch the interview with Rob Hüssey. What a great guy. Appreciate him coming on. Looking forward to seeing what his new video coming out on May 15th is going to be about. Go buy the physical CD of Cyanide. It's got the two ellipses that make it even cool. Like
The umlauts.
is that what it's called?
Yep.
What are
Umlauts.
ellipses? I got the wrong thing. And what Doug said. But it still brings you back to that time. And again, thank you, Rob Hüssey, Cyanide. If you're in Vegas, go check him out. Go check out his 3 cover bands. Thanks again. This is 3 Guys on a Record. I'm Coach signing off.
I'm Doug.
And I'm Brad.
Rock and roll.
Thank you.